YouTube Ozick going. The Goat House is back. The playoffs are set. Whole different ball game this time of the year. I'm here at my full playoff predictions round by round. We have a bunch of playoff content on the way. Excited about that. Off-season content on the way as well. Already some on the channel. We'll have an updated mock draft very soon after this national championship game. So join us. Like, subscribe to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. Very important where all the news coming out, especially with the coaching firings. And then check out our sponsors, Liquid IV, GLD Shop, code GO. Always got that GLD jewelry on. Links pinned in the comments. Here is your bracket. We're going to go game by game, round by round here, and you'll see my Super Bowl prediction. My initial thoughts. Things could change along the way, of course, with injuries, how teams are playing in the playoffs. Regular season at this point doesn't matter. It's pretty much get in. These are the teams that got in. And it's, again, I always like to say it's a whole different ball game. Everyone probably knows this, but just a reminder that the NFL doesn't work like a normal bracket. The one seeds will play the lowest seeded team that advances. I'm sure most people knew that, but so I can remind everyone. So here we go. We're going to go game by game here, my initial thoughts. So we'll start with the 2 versus 7. We'll start with the AFC. The Bills versus the Steelers. The Steelers are heating up. They're tough. Mike Tomlin always has those guys playing. They're pretty effective on both sides of the ball as well. But I am going to go with the Bills in the first round. They play much better football the second half of the year. Still a little sloppy here and there, but they have a lot of different ways to beat teams. They're also very dominant at home. They could beat you with the run, the pass. The health, mainly on defense, is kind of the big question. Some guys did get beat up in that Dolphins game that just ended a couple hours ago where the Bills won the division. So I guess we'll monitor that. But I will take the Bills, who are heavy favorites in round 1. The other game, the Cowboys and the Packers. The Packers and our team, they were heating up to start the second half of the year. They kind of went cold for a little bit there, but now these last 2 games, they won 3 straight, but really starting to play better. The offense played better the last 3 games. Last 2 games, and the defense, started to step up. Jordan Love's playing really good football. Those young weapons are playing well. Aaron Jones, it's good to see him in there and healthy because he's very, very solid back. The Cowboys are known for not being able to hang in the playoffs. They choke in the playoffs. They just can't get over that hump. And, dealing with the hot Packers team, Jordan Love, could it be a trap? It definitely could be. The Cowboys, if there was a part of their defense I don't love, it's a pretty good defense, but stopping the run, the Packers could come out and pound the football and kind of control the clock. They're pretty good at controlling the clock. So it actually could be interesting when you put it that way. But I feel much better going with the Cowboys here at home. I trust them more on both sides of the ball. The Packers defense has been better the last 2 weeks against the Vikings and the Bears. I still do worry about that Packers defense. Are they going to give up like an insane amount of points to the Cowboys? I'm not really saying that, but I believe the Cowboys are better on both sides of the ball, but the Packers have a future with Jordan Love, and they could be a little sneaky here. But I do have both the 2 seeds winning, so we won't see the 1 seeds play the 7 seeds here, according to my predictions. We're going to move on to 3 versus 6, the Chiefs versus the Dolphins. I'm going to go with the Chiefs, and I'm pretty confident with it. I guess it's bold to say that. It's not really not bold to pick the Chiefs, but I'm pretty confident with them for multiple reasons here. I think they're more prepared, more experienced for the playoffs, and the Dolphins won. We got the best team, the Chiefs, the best team over the last how many years. They have the best player in football. He wasn't the best player in football, Patrick Mahomes, that is this year, but he is the best player in football in general. At home, that's huge. The Dolphins got really beat up at the wrong time. Of course, they could get some guys back, but they got no pass rushers at this point. So how it's going to be tough. That's one of the most important things when it comes to the next level of games, the playoffs, I should say. So that's tough, and it's going to be freezing out there. The weather looks atrocious for this game, and you got Miami, a team that has that home field advantage, playing in the heat, going to Kansas City. So multiple reasons I like the Chiefs. I don't really focus on regular season games too much, like if they play each other in the regular season. So I don't really think that game matters. It was in Germany. The Chiefs dominated the first half. They didn't really do anything in the second half. I don't know if that game really comes into play here. I think all the other factors, and I'm going to trust the Chiefs more in the playoffs, but and specifically at home. A great game. It's going to be a Sunday night primetime game between the LA Rams and Matt Stafford in the revenge game for him, going to Detroit in a revenge game for Jared Goff. I mean, just massive for both those quarterbacks. This is going to be a great game, I think. I think it could be somewhat high scoring. I expect some scoring in this game, given the explosiveness of these offenses. The Lions defense has been struggling recently as well, so that can kind of contribute to maybe a shootout. The Rams defense has played better than expected this year, but they've almost gutted it, on paper this offseason. So could that show in the playoffs? You start to wonder about things like that. This should be a really good game. I kind of predetermined that I was going to have the Rams win in the first round of the playoffs because I love the way they've been playing. I've been hyping up the Rams, but I did want to see who they actually match up with, and I do really like the matchup for the LA Rams. So I am going to pick the Rams, and you see they will go on to play the Niners. So I'll have the upset. It doesn't really feel like that big of an upset, though. And then for my reasons picking them, and the Lions could win. Home, that crowd's going to be crazy. This is the best Lions team maybe ever. They're a very solid team. The Lions in general were better than the Rams during this regular season, but recently, especially in the big games, you could argue the Rams have been the better team. Maybe a little bit more, definitely more prepared for this moment I know they're away, but in the playoffs with the experience, Matt Stafford winning that Super Bowl recently, just players with experience. Sean McVay, great coach that he is. Lions is a new team. It's a young, inexperienced team, so could that play a part? That's a small part of it for me. It's maybe a little more than small because, the experience that the Rams have. But I love both these offenses, and I'm going to trust the Rams defense a bit more. I know the Lions defense can make clutch plays, Aiden Hutchinson and company, but Rams are very well coached everywhere. But you look even at Raheem Morris on defense, I think they can make that extra play. But I think the Rams, I'm going to trust their offense versus the Lions defense more in this one. I think they're more prepared for this game. They've looked like one of the better teams in football the last several weeks, if you combine all of them. And we kind of knew it before then too. Like, they're better than their record. They're good. This is a good team. And Stafford's been playing really good ball. Jared Goff, how will he play? He's been a little inconsistent recently. Get a flashy play, but then some mistakes. Specifically, we had some in the Cowboys game against man coverage, but I'd say specifically against zone coverage. The Rams will throw that at him. So this should be a really good game. I'm more comfortable picking the Rams. I was actually surprised that their opening line is at +3.5. I thought for some reason I thought the Rams were actually going to be favored, but it could go either way. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So that would match them up against the Niners. Rams are a team that has kind of been getting hyped on for the playoffs recently, so we'll stick with that. And then we are on to the big ones, really the best, what were supposed to be. Actually, I think my favorite game is probably the Lions-Rams, but what are supposed to be the best games of the wild card round 4 versus 5. Texans versus Browns. This was the hardest game to pick for me. I think the second hardest was probably, it was the other 4-5 game, Bucks and Eagles. I didn't really hesitate too much with the other ones, if I'm being honest. It doesn't mean I'm going to be 100% right on those, but the 4-5, the Texans-Colts, the toughest one to pick. They just played each other a couple weeks ago. The Browns dominated that game, but the Texans were missing, obviously, some key guys in that game. And that's where it becomes tricky, too, I guess, for the Browns, because you dominated that game, so you kind of, when preparing for this game, do you go all right, we got to do what was working in that game. We kind of got to roll with the same thing. Of course, you don't do exactly the same thing, throughout the whole game plan, all the play. Not really what I'm saying. But you kind of got to stick what was working, and that could be a little tricky because the Texans could adjust for that, and they are throwing in their better players. They're missing a list of players, including their star rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud. So that makes it that actually makes it challenging for the Browns, and that's why it's also hard to beat teams twice, but even harder now. You kind of got to keep things the same, perhaps, and then the Texans are getting better players in there. So saying it like that actually sides with the Texans. A reason for the Browns, the inexperience for the Texans, rookie quarterback. Joe Flacco isn't as good as he used to be, even though he's playing well, but he's been down this road before. He's experienced here. So the inexperience for the Texans, I I do have to give credit to Slowick, their offense coordinator this year, helping Stroud and getting them to the playoffs. But there are times that the way they coach is interesting. Maybe they focus a little bit too much on trying to run clocks. Sometimes or play calling kind of limits the drives. I thought the Colts game in that last game, I thought they could have got a huge lead early, but I questioned some of the play calling in that game. So will it be like that? I do think, the Texans, DeMeco Ryans, that defense, it's good, but you do think the Browns have to have the much better defense. Well, maybe not much better, but the better defense in this game, in a game where maybe you don't expect an insane amount from offenses. Do you go at the better defense? Can argue both sides here. The Browns, I have noticed that a lot of teams have been much better at home, especially the defense. It's looked like the best defense football at home, and then not so much away. They are away in this game. Kind of going back and forth. The Texans, missing Tank Dell, it's all on Nico Collins, which kind of worked out against the Colts. This is going to be a good game. This is the toughest one to pick. I decided to go with the home team here. I was going to take the Houston Texans. It's a 50-50 game. They are the underdog, so that makes it the second underdog that I picked between the Rams and the Texans. This is almost, you could say this with either side. You don't want to overthink it, but again, the playoffs are a whole different game. The Browns have a list of injuries, that happen. They have a quarterback that hasn't been there all year, a guy that's been considered washed up. He's proving those people wrong that say that. Joe Flacco's playing well, but it's one of those moments where if the Browns lose, and people are probably going to go, yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense. Who's been in and out in that situation with the quarterback. But as I was going to say, you almost could say the same thing about the Texans too. If they lose, you go, oh yeah, they're just too young. You have a former Super Bowl winning quarterback going against a rookie quarterback. But I'm going to trust the Texans a little bit more at home. If the Browns were home, I'd pick them. And the Browns been turned, Flacco's been good, but he's been turning the ball over like crazy. If you do that in this game, that'll be the difference. If you turn the ball over like that, I think the Texans actually will take care of the football. I think DeMeco Ryans will call that right defense. And I do think it's a big factor of what I said to start, talking about this game is the Browns. It's the mind games with themselves on this, or the Texans playing mind games, because they beat them up so good, but it was a lot of the Texans backups. Do they do the same thing? Well, the Texans adjust and throw some better players in there. I think that's tough for the Browns, actually. For their sake, I almost wish they did not play the Texans recently or at all. So I thought that was interesting. So more things point me towards the Texans, but again, if it was in Cleveland, I'd probably go with them. I'm looking out for the Texans play calling. Can they keep a lead with that? So it should be an interesting game. The Bucs and the Eagles, a tough one to pick for both teams, because the Eagles, got to the Super Bowl last year. It's a dominant team through most of the season, and recently. If you're going to I'm not going to do this, but if you're going to base things strictly off the end of the regular season, which kind of matters if you're hot, you're cold, that kind of plays a part, but regular season playoffs different. But if you're going to base things off the end of the regular season, the Eagles are the worst team in the playoffs. I'm pretty damn sure. If you're just going to base that off that, they're by far the worst team in the playoffs. So are you going to pick what you just saw from the Eagles? It's a little risky. And for the Bucs, they were heating up. They were one of the hottest teams in football, and they kind of got cold a little bit at the end. I do think there's a decent chance they were trying to win while saving, because that actually is a big thing. I know the Rams did that the year they won the Super Bowl. They were really holding back on stuff until the playoffs. But I think it happens a bit. Teams really, they're gambling, but they're trying to hide some things, 'cause it's all about the game plan. It's all about a lot of it's coaching, and figuring out how to expose the other team, or just beat the other team in general. So I do think they maybe were saving stuff. You could say the same thing about the Eagles. Maybe they, especially the Giants game, they realized they probably weren't winning the division at that point. So do these teams have something in their back pocket for this game? Could have it, maybe not. But the Bucs did get a little cold those last two games. And they're home in this game. It's just so tough to pick, because the Eagles' defense has been so bad, and you would think the Bucs would be able to score. Almost anybody can score on them. And another tricky part, like I said, the Bucs been playing. They were hot, and they were kind of playing the last two games but their defense has been pretty good recently. Like, it was atrocious at one point. Like, they were really going downhill. They were blowing coverages, and they've been better. Like, which Bucks defense are we going to get? Eagles offense has been disappointing, actually recently, but they got so much talent. They're explosive. The star talent. This is a tough one too. I'm going to go with the Eagles here. They're actually the favorite, so this is not an upset. I went with 2 upsets already. But the Bucks could win that game. Is it really the last few games we saw from the Eagles? Is that really them? And are we really seeing the real Bucks defense recently? I could see the Eagles coming out with that star talent they have, and just putting up the points and scoring enough in this game. I look at the difference in offensive line too. It's a big thing when it comes to the playoffs. It's not everything, but the difference in offensive lines I thought was a factor here for me as well. But the Eagles defense has been really been struggling. So how much will that change? So now we see who I have in the next round, and the 4-5 ones were really tough. I think those can go either way. With the other games, I didn't really. Like, I kind of knew who I was picking in those games. Not that it's a guarantee. But on to the next round, we are going to start with the Ravens and Texans. I'm going to go with the Ravens in that one. They played each other right off the bat at the beginning of the year, so you definitely cannot judge off that. Not that I love judging off regular season anyways, but the Texans is kind of 50-50 in the first round. Then you had a rested Ravens team, which could that hurt them? They're coming off a loss. Then they have a bye. Does that hurt them? I mean, they can't get injured in the first round. It's kind of been their issue, in either before or in playoffs in the past, maybe coming up short for that reason. So just much more experience. I think they're better right now. I think it's going to be a little bit different than the last time these two teams played. But I definitely feel a lot more comfortable with the Ravens in the divisional round. On to the other one seed game, which is 1 versus 6, the Niners versus the Rams, a division battle. And I probably should have saved this one, but because I kind of have some spoilers here, but I think this game could go either way. I think it can go either way. I've been hyping up the Rams for some weeks here. Something in my gut is telling me, like, watch out for those Rams. Watch out for the Rams. Niners play like one of the best teams of football. They can win in multiple different ways. That's what I love about the Rams. So that's what I'm looking for with teams. Like, I need you to be able to win in multiple different ways. These two teams are dominant on the ground and through the air. But I said I had some spoilers here, and basically, I think the team with the best chance to beat the Niners in the NFC, I think it's the Rams. And I actually will take a step further, and it's a spoiler for the rest of our bracket, and I will say the winner of this game, Niners-Rams, goes to the Super Bowl. That's what I have. I feel more comfortable with the Niners in this one. The reason to go Rams is the quarterback difference, and now Purdy played very well this year, but this is a different game in the playoffs. It's a whole different level. It's a whole different game. Purdy, good. In the passing game with adjustments, he does have Shanahan holding his hand. Will that be a factor here? I don't know if I trust the Rams defense. It's been good. It's been way better than expected. It's well coached, but they did get rid of a lot of talent. I think that'd be kind of the thing that stops the Rams. Like, if they get first rounded, or if they get dominated in this game, I think it's going to be because teams kind of figured out that defense while it's missing Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, players like that. But they've had guys step up, and play better than expected. But that could be the difference there. But the difference also could be the quarterback position. But I like the Niners. Offensively, I think it's pretty damn close to even. Defensively, I do like the Niners better. So I will go with the 49ers. But I kind of spoiled it by saying I think the winner of that game, Niners-Rams, if it is Niners-Rams in the second round, I think goes to the Super Bowl. I'm pretty confident with that, actually. I'm pretty confident saying that. Maybe that's bold being that confident, but the winner of that game goes to the Super Bowl, so I have the Niners going to the Super Bowl, but we can see the rest of the bracket here. Bills versus Chiefs, super tough. Something is telling me the Chiefs click into it. It's the playoffs. Kelsey figures his shit out because he's been off. Mahomes has been a little off. He's the best player in football. Nagy's been a big part of calling that offense. Probably not anymore. Probably more Andy Reid, maybe Mahomes taking over. And it's just a different Chiefs team, and they click into it. Something tells me that. There's a part of me that almost wants me to pick them, maybe not only to go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl, but the Bills got hot in the second half of the year. I love how many different ways the Bills could win. The Chiefs could do that too. It's really about durability, health with the Bills, but I love that the Bills are like, sometimes it's like, are they a better running team or passing team? Like, they're top tier in both. That's fantastic. The Chiefs are like that as well, but will the Chiefs run the ball enough? Like, they should actually run the ball more. Tough to say that, though, when you have the best player in football and he's a passer. The difference in this game, the one and only difference in this game for me on who I'm picking, I was going back and forth on this one. This is probably the toughest game to pick on this whole video, perhaps. Yeah, maybe not. But the difference was home field. The Bills are dominant at home. They really only have one loss. The record books will show two, but the Jags game was in London, so that's it's a dominant home team. If it was in Kansas City, I would take the Chiefs. They played each other not too long ago. Again, I don't want to base a whole lot on a regular season game, but it was in Kansas City. If you the game was close, but if you watched that game, it felt like the Bills dominated that game. I didn't like the play calling to put them away or continue to go up. James Cook was running all over them. So could that be the case again? Could the play calling cost the Bills? It certainly can. But I think that game could have, the Bills looked a lot better in that game. Not that means a whole lot. It's a regular season matchup. The Chiefs are probably saving some stuff. I think the Bills have kind of been trying, like the first half of the Dolphins game, they've been trying to keep things quiet as well, but I love how there's just so many different ways they can win. And then for Cowboys-Eagles, again, I could see the Eagles just looking nowhere near like what they just looked like in recent weeks and looking like that team full of stars that they are. But it's it's difficult to pick them in the first round. I did that. It's difficult to pick them any further than that. I guess it's difficult to pick the Cowboys too, based on how they play against good teams and especially in big games, and they're past in the playoffs. But I don't really love basing a lot of things off the past either. I think the Cowboys are the better team. They're at home. They're really good at home. And I do feel like it's also like a safe pick, even though it's risky picking the Cowboys to playoffs, but they're home against the Packers. They're home against the Eagles. Like, these are games they should win, but will they? So then we have 1-2 on both sides. So that maybe that's a little boring, but I almost went with the Chiefs. Something telling me they can click into gear here. It could be 1 versus 3. I think for the AFC, it's two of those three teams. One of those three teams that goes to Super Bowl, and then for the NFC, I think we'll see the Niners, Cowboys, or Rams maybe advance to the Super Bowl. That's kind of where I'm feeling right now. If the Eagles completely revert back to where they were, then maybe them. I think the Lions are too young. The Packers are too young. I don't like the defense. I don't think the Bucs can make that much of a run. For back to the AFC, if the Dolphins were healthier, sure. Steelers have been heating up, but I still think they have the talent, especially at quarterback, even though Rudolph's been okay. Texans too young. The Browns could be sneaky. I don't think they go to the Super Bowl, but they could be sneaky if Flacco continue to play well and they have that defense and they figure out how to play better away. I actually think the Ravens probably rather see the Texans than the Browns in the second round. I think that's the case. So could the Browns be sneaky? They could. They could. And their ceiling is winning too. I don't see them going to the Super Bowl. They could actually. Again, I picked the Texans, but it's 50-50. If they win that game, I'm not going to pick them to beat the Ravens. But again, they could. That's interesting one. So I could see them kind of a maximum winning 2 games there. So that's what I mean by being sneaky. So these are the 4 teams. I'm a big fan of kind of going with my gut and kind of going with the original picks. If you guys remembered, I did make not my preseason picks; those were off. I'm gonna go with the legitimate excuse that Joe Burrow got injured on that one. But early in the season, I made predictions, and I had 2 teams in the Super Bowl, and those 2 teams are still alive with my scenario here. So I will go with that. I already spoiled that I have the Niners beating the Cowboys, going through. I think the winner of the Niners Rams, and the Rams very well could lose in the first round of Lions. It's a good football team over there, but the winner of Niners Rams, I think, goes to the Super Bowl. So I will have the Niners. I think they're by far the best team in the NFC. I think the Rams could be sneaky against them, but Just the most complete team at home in this scenario. The Cowboys playing away, they're a far better team at home than away. Like, a huge difference. I'm going to trust the Niners. For the AFC, the Ravens versus the Bills. The Ravens have easily been the best team during the regular season. Now, that's not everything, but it doesn't really take anything away from them. But we can't base everything off the regular season. But this defense is absolutely dominant. But I have noticed, does the best defense in the regular season usually stay in the playoffs? It's kind of there's different game plans, different adjustments, more film out. So that's something to think about too. Lamar's been the best player in the playoffs. The Bills been a little sketchy at times, a little sus at times, but play really good football. Something I noticed about the Ravens as well is, even though the defense has been playing great, it actually, nobody really talking about this, it actually looks like you can run the football on them. So that's actually a matchup I'm looking for, because when you play the Bills, what I love about the Bills, they can win in so many different ways. Like, you don't know if they're going to come out and just pound the football to James Cook. Now they're getting Fournette going. But you do have to play back, because Josh Allen has that cannon, and you do have to worry about him running outside, inside. You have to worry about so many things. And they got Dalton Kincaid in the mix this year. Injuries are a big thing for both these teams. Will they stay healthy? The Ravens getting over that. Both these teams getting over that hump. The Bills haven't been able to last year over the Bengals, but the Chiefs in the past. The Ravens haven't looked the same in the playoffs. Now they have Todd Monken, who's a lot better than Greg Roman, but it's mainly because they get one-dimensional at times. Like, times teams are like, all right, if we can try to keep Lamar in the pocket, like, there's usually a better game plan for everything in the playoffs. Doesn't mean they fully execute, but and make them pass downfield. Lamar could do that. I actually wonder about the receivers. Zay Flowers has been playing a lot better. So can they get over that hump? Can they, be a great passing team throughout? A consistent passing throughout the playoffs. I mean, they don't have to do much to get here, so it could be easier. So I think the safest pick and the most common pick is Ravens-Niners, but I'm kind of going to stick with my gut and a prediction I had earlier in the year. I'm going to go Bills-Niners. What I love about the Bills, again, is that they can beat you in so many different ways, which the Ravens could as well. I still wonder about those receivers, though. How consistent will they be? They don't have the hardest run to that point, but the Bills, they're pretty beat up right now. This pick actually could change. I really wanted to do this video tonight, and it's actually the morning of the 8th, but because it's going on for quite some time here. But the Bills just won the division and really doesn't have a lot to do with that game. But I also think they kind of been saving stuff for the playoffs as well, because they know they're the same team in the playoffs in the past years. They get figured out, they lose, so they change things. Leslie Frazier not calling the defense, took a step down, so because his defense was kind of getting predictable. But they have so many ways of beating you. Niners, same thing with defense, running the football, and then the passing game as well. Tricky thing is Purdy, who had a great year, but playoffs different game. He's gonna have to be that big boy quarterback. You're gonna have to be able to understand defenses a little bit better. But This is my gut right now. This is my gut. Bills, Niners. My gut really. It could be the Rams. Like, I'm something about the Rams. I'm like, they could do it. And I like I said, I think the winner of the Niners Rams, I had going to the Super Bowl, so we have the Niners. But I think people are gonna be surprised maybe what I'm about to say, but I think it could be. I don't want to say bold. I think it could be a little bold. I think it's for me. I think, looking at myself, I'm a little bold going with the Niners, and that is because I've said it out loud, I've always believed, like, you have to have an elite and pretty much experienced quarterback to win the Super Bowl, and I'm kind of going against that right now. And that is my worry with picking the Niners, because in the big games, Purdy has struggled a little bit. I'm really not worried about his accuracy, anything like that, like skill. It's more of like defenses throwing him off, disguising things, having a great game plan for him, because they know he's not the most experienced guy, and he doesn't make many adjustments at the line after reading defenses and audibling, adjusting pass plays. A lot of it is Shannon holding his hand. There's almost only so much you can do in the NFL. Obviously, a lot different than college. So that is, and Purdy's actually been better in the NFL than college, so that's really not the point. But that's the big difference. Like, he's gonna have to take another step, like in the playoffs. But the reason where I was okay doing this is, well, I don't think the Niners want to see the Ravens. Not that it's guaranteed; they're guaranteed to lose just because what happened a few weeks ago. But But I do like how the Niners match up against the field, like most of the teams, like Bills, these other teams. And I could have the Bills win. I thought about having the Bills win this game, but it's just such a tough. The difference in paths is actually decided. Was a big factor for me, I should say. But again, love the way multiple different ways the Niners could win. But I was getting at the quarterback. Quarterbacks aren't too consistent in general this year. Lamar maybe is. But there is there going to be a lights out quarterback performance in this playoffs? I think every year you go in there thinking like, yes, this guy, that guy, this guy. And it wouldn't surprise me if Mahomes did it. But there's usually a list. But this year, I think it's about more than just quarterback play. That's kind of the feeling. Maybe people could agree. That's kind of it's probably going to be different in the playoffs, but it's kind of the feeling I get. So I'm going to go with the team that a mixture. I think maybe has the most complete team, can win in the most ways possible. The path is better than the AFC teams. Again, the Rams could be sneaky against the Niners in the second round if they play them, but this is what I'm feeling at the moment. Tough prediction. We're going to have our weekly picks week by week, so thoughts could change as we go on here, and still want to hear some injury news for some of these teams too. The Bills, a big one. I know Rasul Douglas got hurt in that game. That's a big one for them. So this is my gut. This is what I went with. Even though my gut's telling me Rams, I don't think the Rams can win the Super Bowl though. That'd be a little bit. They could. I said they can go, but maybe a little bit too much. The Ravens were the most dominant team in the regular season. They could be that in the playoffs as well. It's just something's telling me. Something's telling me this could be the way it goes. But pretty unpredictable, so that should make it very, very fun. Hopefully the refs do not decide too much like they did in the regular season. Can only hope for that. But more playoff content, more takes from other guys in our weekly picks video. All that is on the way. Off-season content rolling out as well. Mock draft coming up. So hopefully you guys join us for that. Like, subscribe to Notificated Zombie. Much, much appreciated. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. That's very important. Links pinned in the comments for that. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.